This morning, this afternoon, let's take a look at what I think of as one of the more mystical parables that Jesus used as a metaphor for this kingdom of heaven that he spoke about. This is found in the 25th chapter of Matthew, if you're interested in reading it in its entirety. It runs from the 14th to the 30th verse. But in that teaching, he seems to be suggesting that the heavenly experience is directly related to the integrity of our commitment to invest the talents given to us by the creative force in the universe. You probably remember most of the story. The Lord was going on a trip, turned the operation of his estate over to 3 servants, and while he was gone, he charged them each with varying levels of responsibility, depending on what they describe biblically as their several abilities. During his absence, the servant who the Lord had given the 5 talents to invested them well, made a tidy profit, and when the Lord returned, he said, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord." Beautiful. So far, so good. And likewise, the second servant, who had received 2 talents from the Lord, put them to useful work, adding to the estate. And when the Lord returned, he said, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord." Same response, even though it was only 2 talents in that case. And now comes the plot shift and the lesson. The third servant, who had received 1 talent from the Lord, got cold feet about taking a chance on losing what the Lord had given him. So he decided to bury his talent in the backyard rather than invest it in gainful activity. When the Lord returned and discovered the third servant had not invested his talent and could only return what he'd been originally given, well, to say the least, he was not a very happy camper. He landed all over the hapless servant, declaring, and this is heavy business, "Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou oughtest therefore to have put my money in the bankers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with interest. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance, but from him that hath not shall be taken away, even that which he has." Tough boss, wouldn't you say? It's called universal principle. But begging your pardon, I don't think anybody ever related to waking up as a delightful trip through a rose garden. At least we haven't gotten that far yet. The short story of that whole teaching goes like this. If the flow of your life experience presents you with an opportunity to invest your creative juice in a righteous response to the unfolding moment, you jump right in. You get your talents wet and enter thou into the joy of the Lord. Of course, the invitation to invest your talent occurs on many planes in an infinite variety of ways. The way of things might be calling us out to invest our talent in the more mundane worlds of vocation or recreation, politics, education, or relationships. If that's the case, go for it. The possibilities there are endless. After all, this incarnation is human, so enjoy the curriculum. But don't fail to invest your talent and then to do what it takes to understand deeply exactly what that implies. And all that being the case, though, something was compelling me to sit with the possibility that there just might be a spiritually ordained category of human activity that would max out the grace of investing some talent in its unique opportunity to know the joy of the Lord. And then it struck me. One verse after Jesus concludes his teaching on the talents, he begins his discourse on the goats and the sheep, articulating exactly how Our choices in the arena of service to humanity determines which of the Hebraic symbols we get to identify with, the goats or the sheep, and the consequences thereof of being identified with those symbols. The condensed version of that goes like this. You're a sheep. Mazel tov. You're a goat. Oy vey. You remember that teaching, I'm sure. It's the one that ends with, inasmuch as you've done it unto these, inasmuch as you've been of service to one of these, the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. And that earns you the designation of a beloved sheep that sitteth on the right hand of the sacred. I've got a hunch that the bottom line of the Jesus ethic occurs in that mystical moment when heart meets heart, in an act of loving kindness that elevates both participants to the omega point of the Lord's joy. And that's the payoff. That's the payoff for any act of human kindness, be it great and grand or quiet and ever so intimate. In the heart-centered calculus of a Jesus, intention to love is prime. How many or who you love is not all that relevant. In the cosmic scheme of things, few of us are called upon to engage our hearts in loving service the world will ever come to know of or pronounce great. Now and then, in a chaotic dance of form and circumstance, called life on earth, a Mother Teresa emerges, or a Martin Luther King Jr., or a Gandhi, or a Jesus, and that niche is righteously theirs through the right of consciousness. But be not dismayed. Let's remember what the very good mother from Calcutta encouraged us to remember when she counseled, very few of us will be called upon to do acts of service thought of as great, but all of us can do small acts of service with great love. Amen. In the spiritually awakened, it is readily apparent that every act of service dedicated to the alleviation of human suffering is an equally vital thread of this shared mutuality we call our lives. Remember, for every one of the great examples of charity and compassion that have found their way into the historical record, there have been countless millions done in graceful anonymity, quiet expressions of nurture and compassion, invested in the sublime business of love, the kind of selfless service that inspires a joyful Lord to whisper in your ear, well done, my good and faithful servants. Enter now into the joy of the Lord. So how do we make our lives work? How do we accommodate the teachings that invite us to serve people in that totally, completely unconditional way? That we might invest our talents, especially in those areas of life where they're most profoundly needed. The first practice is the practice of undiscriminating virtue. Care for those who are deserving. Also, and equally, care for those who are not. And there's the rub, huh? Yeah, well, enjoy the work. It's yours to do. And if you get quiet for a moment and ask, okay, Father, Mother God, okay, Brother Jesus, okay, Lao Tzu, and okay, Krishna, or Buddha, or whoever you go to for your personification of the divine intelligence, you kind of ask for a little guidance. Help out a little here. Show me the way to invest my talent that will enter me into the joy of your heart. Thank you, beautiful ones. Thank you for listening.